This is Croissant 101, and today I want to show you how to make a beautiful hand-laminated croissant at home. I'm going to take you through the recipe step by step, show you why the ingredients are so important and the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way.
The ingredients for the détrempe or the dough, so we've got flour, sugar, salt, butter, fresh yeast, milk, honey, and water. You can by all means use instant yeast, but I prefer fresh yeast from a flavour perspective and the results that I get. Then the milk and the water need to be at the right temperature. We're going to talk about that later. So we're going to add all of our ingredients into a stand mixer. I've got this beautiful Sun Mix spiral stand mixer. You can obviously use a regular stand mixer. And we're going to add the dry ingredients on top of the wet. The wet ingredients are at the right temperature, then the yeast and the butter. We're going to mix on a low speed for 7 minutes, then increase the speed just a little bit, mix for another 7 minutes, then we ramp it up one more time for the final minute until we have a dough temperature of around 24 degrees Celsius. We're going to knead it very gently on the surface until it's nice and smooth, and just check that window pane to make sure that we've developed enough gluten. And then we just cover this dough, let it rest at room temperature. When the dough has rested, we're just going to gently roll it out into a rough rectangle. Wrap this dough up now. We're going to chill it for 12 hours in the fridge. The best thing to do is actually to make this at night, so then when you come back in the morning, it's ready to laminate.
Now we need to talk about ingredients, and two very important ones, flour and butter. Now flour is important because it gives strength and elasticity to a dough, but also flavour. Now personally, I like to use French flour, okay? People use different blends of flour, but I like a French T45 flour because of the flavour it gives, but also how nice it is to roll. So get yourself a good French flour. Now when it comes to butter, I cannot stress enough how much of an improvement you will see in your croissant making skills if you invest in a professional laminating butter. Now this is from a brand called Isigny, and the reason it's so good is not only does it taste better, it's higher fat percentage, but it has a higher plasticity. And this means it's very flexible even when it's cold, and that makes it so much easier to roll your croissants compared to a supermarket butter, which has a higher water content, which means it's more likely to shatter when you are rolling it out. So I guarantee you'll see a drastic improvement in your croissant making skills if you invest in a laminating butter. Now I understand if you can't get your hands on that, so we're going to cheat this ever so slightly if you can't get it, and that's by using regular supermarket butter and a little bit of flour. We're going to beat that together to form a nice paste, and what we're doing by adding that flour is kind of cheating that plasticity ever so slightly. Now we're going to take that paste and we're going to draw onto a piece of parchment paper a 17 by 20 centimeter square. We're going to add that butter into the center, then fold the edges over the top and use a rolling pin to roll it into a nice tight square. This is going to give us a beautiful block that we can roll later and add into our dough. It's going to be a perfect thickness and it's going to make the whole process a lot easier. We're going to chill that ideally overnight.
Before we start, we need to make sure the dough and the butter are at the right temperature. The dough needs to be around 4 degrees Celsius straight out of the fridge, and the butter slightly warmer at 11 to 12 degrees Celsius. We take the butter and we place it into the center of the dough. We wrap the dough around the butter and seal it in the middle. Then we've got these overlapping edges here, which we're going to cut with a sharp knife or a box cutter to relieve the tension, which is going to make it much easier to roll. We roll the dough to give it some width, then turn it 90 degrees so that seam is vertical and in line with our body, and we roll it into a nice long rectangle about 5 millimeters thick. Now you will have a few shaggy ends here, which is fine. What we can do is just trim these off with a box cutter, and then we're going to perform our first single turn, what we'd also call a single fold. So we take 1/3 of the dough, we fold it up, and we take the second third of the dough and we fold that over the top. We're going to chill that in the freezer, then the fridge, and once it's chilled, we can use a box cutter again to cut those edges and relieve the tension. Roll it to give it some width, turn it 90 degrees so the seams are vertical and in line with our body. We roll it into a long rectangle, trim off any shaggy ends before performing our second single fold.
Once you've completed your second single fold, we're going to chill that dough and complete one more single fold. That will give us a total of 3 single folds. Now, the type of folds you do, either double or single, and the combination of those really is up to you. Personal preference for me, I like 3 single folds. Once you have done all those folds, we're going to chill the dough before rolling out again.
When it comes to shaping these croissants, I like to do a croissant that's 33 by 8 centimeters after a lot of testing. And that means that we need to roll the dough into a rectangle that's kind of roughly 38 centimeters tall and 3.5 millimeters thick. Then we're going to trim it down to size to that 33 centimeters that I mentioned. We're going to make incisions along the bottom of the dough about 8 centimeters wide, which is the width of the base of our croissant. We're going to use a ruler to join up these marks, cutting them to create the perfect triangle shape. And now we need to roll them into this classic croissant shape. And I'll be honest, this is a little bit difficult with a giant tripod in your face, but I tried my best. I'm just going to gently stretch the dough out with your hands, and then starting from the base, roll the dough up on itself, and then make sure that little tail that you have at the end, press the dough quite firmly into the base, and that will kind of seal it, and you'll be left with your nice rolled croissant.
Once we've rolled them, it is time to prove. Now, what I like to do is actually put the trays in the oven, obviously with it turned off, and then just take a small amount of boiling water, a couple tablespoons,
Put that in the bottom corner, and then we change that boiling water every 45 minutes. And I would say about 3 hours later, have a look at our croissants. So you can see they're nice and fat, very jiggly. If you give the tray a shake, they should wobble. Now we're gonna leave these at room temperature for about 10 minutes to form a skin before we egg wash it. In the meantime, we'll preheat the oven. It is time to egg wash the croissants. So we've got egg yolks, egg whites, and cream. We blended it together. And then you just wanna use a pastry brush to gently brush this over the croissants. But if you really wanna take this to the next level, right? You get yourself a fence paint spray like this, and you pour the egg wash in there, and you spray it over the croissants. This is going to give you a much more even coverage to your croissant, even colour as it bakes. So I actually prefer to do this. This is my method. Spray it on. And they go into the oven to bake. When they're finished baking, I mean, just wow, beautiful. These are baked really nice, okay, even golden colour. They're flaky, they're buttery, and when you do cut into them, you get that honeycomb structure that you have been searching for with your homemade croissants.
And there you have your croissant. Now for a hand laminated croissant you've made at home with no professional proving, you are laughing. It tastes incredible, looks amazing, okay? And the great thing about this is the exact same base recipe you'd use to make a pain au chocolat or a croffin or a pain suisse, okay? So once you've mastered the croissant, you can open up your croissant world. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Any questions, just let me know. The full recipe is on my website. Just hit that link in my bio.